This is going on the intro. Darshan ordered cups. Better call Darshan. They delivered them. He forgot they delivered them until after the conference. Well, no, separate. But they ended up in the same place in that UPS. And you're supposed to go there. Darshan forgot, so he's getting them shipped back to his house. Crazy, man. You had one job, Darshan. Now no one's gonna get your cups. Guru Nation, thank you for watching and listening. I'm back in the OG studio with Daniel Rodriguez. I was at the site today, Yuma Clinical Trials. That's why I'm wearing the uniform. I'm dressed to code, and this one's a video / podcast that's fairly important. I don't think I've ever covered it before, and it's about not taking things for granted. So it's inspired by a site owner that I know that has been doing studies for 5 years longer. My bad. They've been doing studies longer than 5 years. They used to do very well, getting studies, and I'm going to get under the hood and see what actually happened. I have a Zoom conversation with this person to figure out what's going on and get them back on track. And they're actually a client of ours, of me and Chris. But they were doing very well, and all of a sudden they stopped getting studies. And I'm not going to speculate as to why. I don't know why. But the point is, this can happen to anyone for any reason, right? It doesn't even have to be that your site did something wrong, although sometimes that is the reason. It could just be timing. It could be the market changed in your area. It could be that other sites came over and are doing business development better. It could be a site network moved in your neighborhood and is siphoning off the studies opportunities from you. Or it could be that without you even knowing, you made some mistakes here and there, and sponsors are and the CROs talk a lot, because the CROs, as much as I am somewhat contrarian to the growth story of CROs continuing, they're one of the most important stakeholders in this industry, and they're the ones that control a lot of the times where the studies go. So if you did something to piss off a big CRO, you might end up being on their blacklist. And I'm going to get under the hood with this particular person and try to figure out what's going on. They seem to be perplexed as to why, so I don't think it's something that's obvious. And you don't want to take things for granted if you're in this space. Whether you're a research site owner or whether you're an employee, there are things that, let's just take a real bird's eye view. I had one-on-one meetings with all of my staff today to kind of assess where we are. This was after SOS, post-SOS, so I had one-on-one meetings with every staff member at Yuma Clinical Trials. And we just kind of discussed a bunch of things. How are things going? We can't rest on our past success. Just because we did good before doesn't mean we're going to guaranteed to be doing good in the future. It requires work. It requires hustle. Just because your recruitment strategy worked for one study doesn't mean it's going to work for the next one, even if it's the same indication. Sometimes there are intangibles. There are variables that you haven't considered. We've had 2 different COPD studies. One of them had a lot of imaging requirements. The other one didn't. And one of them is clearly easier to enroll than the other. And we can't use past performance to predict future performance, even in the same therapeutic indication. So if we want to take a really bird's eye view, like I was saying, you want to look at where this industry is headed. I think in 100 years from now, I actually think it's safe to say 100 years from now, clinical trials as we know it is done. It's not there. I don't think there's a need for private sites anymore, or any site. I think we're going to have digital twins. We're going to be doing in silico trials. These videos will probably be, sad to say, irrelevant. Hopefully some of my philosophical ones stand the test of time, and this is why I have other interests like book reviews, and I'm gonna start getting into things like biotech. Now, in our lifetimes, this industry is not going anywhere. In our lifetime, site owners are going to be needed. In our lifetime, coordinators are going to be needed. But if you really want to fast forward 100 years from now, so picture the year is 2125, I don't think there's research sites. I don't think there's a need for research sites. I think there's digital twins. I think there's in silico trials. I think every human being on the planet is going to have a customized approach to what medications they take. Algorithms are going to dictate what they're going to react to based on their genotype, based on their phenotype, based on their biomarkers. I think that's all coming. I do think 100 years is a safe bet. So in silica trials, like I think that's coming, and it's all to emphasize the greater point that we can't take anything for granted. Like this industry as a whole is going to be radically different if given enough time. Now, let's come back to the present day reality, which is what everyone here is looking at. Today, sites are important, and for the foreseeable future, they are extremely important. They're irreplaceable. Coordinators, irreplaceable, right? CRAs, I still think irreplaceable. There's this other thing coming that's already here. We don't have to wait 100 years. It's called AI. And I think in 5 years' time, the way we do our work as site owners or as CRAs or as coordinators is going to change. And I think it happens slowly. It's kind of like raising the temperature on frogs in a pot, whatever that analogy is. You don't raise it all at once. You raise it little by little. The frogs don't even notice that it's boiling now. And I think AI is a force that's going to change the industry. And if you don't adapt, you will be left behind. I think sites are going to start using AI. I think a lot of the grunt work that coordinators are dealing with, one of the topics at SOS that I was actually on a panel on was artificial intelligence and how sites can use it. I think the Cliff Notes version is it's early for sites to actually have practical use case as an organization, but individuals within the sites, like I've been using it for already a year and a half. I remember when ChatGPT first came out, I used it to help develop a 30-second summary of the study in the language a patient can understand when I'm pre-screening them about a study, and giving me some quotes that I could use during the informed consent process to kind of give me the highlights of a study, like the benefits of the investigational product, the risks, the mechanism of action, all these things that you used to have to be a physician to understand, or you used to have to go ask a physician. Like I remember when I started in 2005, there was no such thing as ChatGPT, and Google wasn't good for this kind of stuff. So I would have to ask my PI, hey, when a patient asks me, like, what's the benefit and potential risk of this study? I know it's all buried in this 30 pages in the consent form, but what's like a 30-second elevator pitch for them? And they would tell me, like, well, based on this is the novel mechanism of action, or this is another one, is just an extended release. Now the AI can do that for you. And then you can be more equipped as an individual to have educated conversations with your study participants, or to create source documents more efficiently, or to program your workflow more efficiently. I use AI in my inbox now to help me filter and reply to my emails. I use AI to help create the structure, the framework of a source document. There's a lot of use cases for AI as individuals. As an organization, that's where things get a little more difficult and more challenging and more complex, because there are regulations and nobody wants to really put it in their SOPs yet, even though everyone's using these tools. So it's in the early days. When that becomes mature and we are able to have SOPs about AI in our SOPs, people are going to be they're going to be like real use cases. And I think the grunt work of coordinators is going to be over. I already met people at SOS. Tilda Research is one of them. They already do the grunt work for the coordinators, data entry. On my YouTube channel, I'm posting these interviews that I've done at SOS. We have panel replays as well. So I'm going to write an article on this Saturday on LinkedIn. But the grunt work of coordinators like data entry, like regulatory filing, like IRB renewals, like study startup, mundane things that could be automated are going to be automated. So anything that can be automated will be automated, and anything that can be centralized will be centralized. And that's going to affect all verticals of this space at the site level and at the CRA level, from study operations and workflow to patient recruitment and retention to business development. Shout out to one of my sponsors, Inato. They're for sure, I don't know this for a fact, but I just would bet everything I own, they are looking at ways to use AI to empower the sites, because this is why they're a sponsor of my podcast. They're very site centric. Creo, same thing. I know they are investing profits back into making the product better. A lot of those solutions happen to come in the form of AI, to the point where it becomes so ubiquitous we don't even call it AI anymore. It's like electricity. You don't brag that your site has electricity, but you talk about what the electricity actually does. We can plug in an ECG. We can have a router. We can have Wi-Fi. Like, there's so much that's going to be unlocked with AI. So to rest on the laurels of the past and to not improve, constantly look for ways to improve your site or your own professional career prospects as a CRA, I think is extremely short-sighted. And I go back to this client that we have. Just because you've done great for, let's say, 10 years, I think the last 3 years they haven't gotten one study. Well, that's clearly something going on there. Either their business development process is clearly not working, because it shouldn't take that long for an experienced site, or they had some issues in their operations that they're not even aware of, but sponsors and CROs somehow are, or they're ignoring competitive market dynamics, and maybe a competitor came in that's now overshadowing them and taking all their studies. And so regardless of what the reason is, or maybe it's multiple reasons, or maybe it's none of those reasons I mentioned, the site owner's job is to continuously analyze what's going on. What's the process? What's happening? How is this working? At my site, Yuma Clinical Trials, we're going to be implementing Monday.com. And I've heard many good things about it. Shout out to Monica and Raul from Clarity Clinical Research. Friends of mine, co-founders of Latinos in Research, co-founders of Save Our Sites. It helps improve their workflow efficiencies. It shows who is responsible for what. You can design it to do whatever you need it to do. These are tools. No sponsor told me, hey, you need to do this. But I'm seeing our workflow right now, and I'm seeing how we just came off of a very busy 2024. With the same team, we ended quarter 4 of 24 very slowly, and we started quarter 1 of 25 very slowly. Things are changing. I've talked to a lot of other site owners who have experienced almost exactly identical evidence from their sites, anecdotal evidence. But I know, hey, we're now getting more studies. We're on pace to do even more studies than we did in 24. How do we scale without necessarily bringing on a lot more staff? Maybe just bringing on one more admin and one more QA person, maybe one more coordinator if we need it. How do we scale? Well, we can't. What got us here is not enough to take us to the next level. And we keep growing because we keep adding specialists. So we have a nephrologist now that we don't have any studies for. But we just had a cardiologist in the same situation last year. We spent a year trying to get him studies. We were not able to get him any studies in 2024. Well, now in 2025, we got him 2 studies already in the first quarter, with a lot more in the pipeline. And that's just one of our PIs. We have 5 other ones plus this nephrologist that we have yet to get a study for. So we are, I wouldn't say exponentially growing, but we are rapidly have the potential to grow. And what got us here is not going to be what takes us to the next level. And so I'm always looking for tools. And this is one of the reasons why we created Save Our Sites. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I have a podcast where I can interview experts and other site owners and have conversations about what's working for your site across all aspects: biz dev, patient recruitment, operations, PI recruitment, human resource. I mean, whatever it is, it's at your responsibility to not rest on your laurels and not assume that what got you here is what's going to take you to the next place. And that means constantly needing to change, constantly needing to tweak. Even if you don't want to grow or not expecting to grow too much, even if it's just a lifestyle business for you, the risk of not doing anything to your lifestyle business is what's happening to this site owner that I'm going to talk to privately, of course. Maybe we'll do a public interview at some point once they turn the corner. But something's going on to where they haven't grown at all. Matter of fact, they've completely fell off a cliff. Like, to go for no studies in a lot, like many years, I think 2 or 3 years. Clearly, something's not right. And whatever it is, it could be their fault. It may not be their fault. In the world of business, it doesn't matter. And then for the career seekers too, if you're a CRA and you're just chilling, like, hey, I don't need to improve my skill set, I don't need to network, I don't need to go meet other people in my space and see what they're up to, and I'm just going to mind my business and do this as long as I can. Technology does not care about your complacency, and technology doesn't care about your attitude. And efficiency and improvements and technology is usually going to win if given enough time. Like, that's a very bad position to bet against, that technology is not going to impact you in some way. And I'm one of those people that does not think that AI is going to radically disrupt or displace CRCs for sure. I think if it does anything in the near term, it's going to reduce the mundane workflow. Again, automation and centralization are big. That's going to be the name of the game for the rest of this decade, for the rest of the 2020s. I think for the CRAs, it's actually happening quicker because the CRAs have 0 patient interaction, which is something you can't really replace. And the CRAs, the only part that it requires some level of humanity is dealing with coordinators, influencing them, persuading them, a lot of emotional intelligence. Why aren't these action items done? Maybe finding some proactive strategies to help. Like the things like source data verification and source data review very soon could be done by AI. Maybe even today. And if you're ignoring this or thinking that, no, Dan's way off on this, I don't think so. I mean, I mess around with these tools enough to know, yes, some of these protocols are complex, but as far as source data review and source data verification, that's exactly what AI, those are exactly the type of functions AI excels at. So now you got to start thinking, what remains of a CRA that AI cannot replace? And it's really interacting with the sites, getting the sites to be compliant, not just knowing that they're not compliant, but knowing how to fix it. right? The AI will be very good at calling out when protocol deviations occur, or when something's mismatched from the EDC. But so far, will still require a human to find a solution to what to do after that fact, or how to prevent those things from happening in the future, which you can debate whether AI is going to do or not. So if you're a CRA, I don't want you to get afraid, but I don't want you to be ignorant either and think this is going to last forever, because I don't think it's going to in the same way it is today. I'm not Nostradamus, but I'm dealing with what's going on right now. And what I see is that the CRAs are going to evolve into project management. And I think at some point, there's really no difference between a project manager and a CRA. And you can say the same thing about a coordinator at the site level. There's not going to be a difference between a project manager and a coordinator. Maybe you can define it arbitrarily. The coordinator still interacts with patients, whereas the project manager manages the workflows. I think that coordinator and PM are going to be the same person, and they're like an opera conductor where they have all these AIs and different technologies at their disposal, and they have to find a way to organize the symphony into getting the patient in the study and then through the study in a safe manner and providing good outcomes to the sponsor, or good data to the sponsor. And at the CRO level, I think very similar. It's just minus the patient interaction. So don't rest on the past. What got you here is not going to get you there, even if you don't want to grow. It's you there when the market is shifting. Technically, improvements and efficiencies are always going to win, because the market will demand that, and these technologies will become ubiquitous in the sense that they're going to get cheaper, better, faster, and pretty soon everyone's going to adapt to it. So if you're working at a site, or you're a site owner, or you're working at a CRO or a sponsor, you got to start thinking in these ways. I don't have all the answers. I'm just here to tell you that things are changing. And I think if you figure out how to leverage them, you can leverage it in your benefit. And if you choose to ignore it, you're running a huge risk. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Stay tuned for the article. Bye-bye. Hey, if you guys like that kind of content, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Stay tuned for more videos.